I found 15 websites.
Shout out to you, Josh. Out of all the resumes I've seen, only about 20 to 30% of them are actually passable for a second review. And I totally get it. It might be your first job or your first big dream job outside of college, but why do you guys keep making the same mistakes when they can simply be fixed in a matter of minutes? And I'm gonna show you how to today. Before I tell you the worst mistakes that you might be making, I think it's important to understand the basics of a resume, because how do we even fine tune a finished product when you don't know the basics? I'm gonna leave some examples of good resumes right here. So look at the format and look at the structure, see if they look similar to yours. But I'm sure the one thing that you can see is that this resume is very concise. If you only have one job or two jobs and your resume is over one page, you're already making a mistake. The second resume basic is to make sure that the formatting is all professional. So your margins, your fonts, your size, all of that is professional. That is the second basic that you need to follow on a resume, especially if you're putting your resume through an ATS system, which most big corporations use. Not optimizing your resume for ATS software is actually one of the worst mistakes that you can make on a resume, and I'm gonna be getting into it later on in this video. The third resume basic is highlight aspects that actually apply to the job. If you're applying to be a cook, don't talk about your accountant experience. You wanna cover previous experience that is actually relevant to the potential job that you're applying for. And if you can give examples of how you dealt with situations in the past through very relatable jobs, that's gonna bump you up in the hiring process. Remember, your resume is a highlight sheet. It's not a personal story. It's a highlight sheet for your potential employer. Fourth resume basic is have somebody proofread it. Everyone, we're all adults here. Let's get over the embarrassment of somebody else proofreading your work. I guarantee you, you've made a mistake on your resume that you haven't noticed. I've made mistakes on resumes that I haven't noticed that I only found out through proofreading. So this is a basic step that everyone should be taking. Get a friend, get a family, because trust me, they want you to succeed. Even though you might be slightly embarrassed, it's worth the conversation, it's worth asking, and it's definitely worth it in the end. The majority of us are not in high school. Let's get over this embarrassment. Let's get over this pride. Give it to a friend or family, have them go over it, see what mistakes you made, because I guarantee you, you made at least one. And the fifth and last basic that I will give you for making a resume is make sure that your contact info and your references contact info is all valid. I think this is the most common mistake that I've seen on resumes is people not actually leaving contact information. And a good resume is worthless when it's not from anyone. And for your references, please, please, please make sure that you ask them before you put them down, because they might give you a bad review. You might actually have the wrong contact information, whatever it may be. Just double check. This is one of the most common mistakes. People actually do call your references. So make sure that you leave valid ones. We're just about to be getting into the worst mistakes that you could be making on your resume, but I just want to go over a cover letter really quickly. Like I said, your resume is a highlight sheet and your cover letter is going to be more of a personal story. Still have it relate to the job, still have it be concise. If you can, please provide a cover letter. Some jobs don't require it, but I always recommend if you can, doesn't hurt to provide it as long as it is a good cover letter. Make sure you spend time on it. If you're a great storyteller, this is where you can shine. This is a great situation where you can tell your potential employer a story about how you succeeded in a previous job that's relevant to the one that you're currently applying for. All right, now we're gonna get into the worst mistakes that you could be making in your resume that are preventing you from your dream job that can simply be fixed in a matter of minutes. Here you go. Resume mistake number one, do not make it too artsy. You better not be taking up a quarter of the page with a big photo of yourself on a resume where nobody cares what you look like. Unless you're applying for a modeling agency, there's no need to have a photo of yourself on a resume. All of the resume examples that I provided previously, there's no photos on them because nobody cares what you look like. I know there's all these templates on Artsy and Canva that look really pretty with really cool borders and a big photo of yourself that you spent maybe money on with a professional photographer, all of that. Let me tell you, nobody cares. And especially if it's gonna go through an ATS software, it's actually gonna rank you lower if you have a photo of yourself in it than if you actually use that space for keywords or providing examples of how you're relevant to this job. I hope you know from the bottom of my heart that every resume that I've seen up until this point with a big photo of somebody goes straight in the garbage. Please make sure that you do not make this silly mistake that can be simply fixed. Here's an example of some really pretty resumes. Here's a trash can. They're gonna go together. Like I said before, your cover letter is where you show a lot more of your personality. This is where you storytell. Yet again, nobody cares what you look like unless you're applying to be a model or an actor, something like that. You don't need any photo of yourself on the resume. The second worst mistake that you're probably making on your resume that you don't even notice is that you're highlighting your duties and not achievements. What do you mean by this? Let me tell you. You don't get a gold star for showing up to school and taking the test that you're supposed to make because it's just expected of you. It's part of the description. So if your plan is to highlight that you followed the job tasks every single day, well yeah, you should have been. Your potential employer wants to see achievement and how you exceeded expectations. Let's bring it back to the school thing. Instead of saying I showed up to class and did all the tests I was supposed to do, you can say something along the lines of I stayed after class and tutored individuals that we're falling behind in class. Or I stayed late with the teacher and we were working on a cool side project. Here's a little bit more of a description about it. Could be another thing that you can bring up in a resume. If you worked in the customer service field and you were the go-to retention individual, you want to bring that up on a resume. If you worked for a sales company, you were the #1 seller, you want to highlight that. You don't want to highlight about how you made a sale in a sales position because you're just performing your duties. You want to highlight your achievements. Like I said before, your resume is a highlight sheet. The third mistake is probably going to become the most important one in the next couple of years, and that is optimizing your resume for ATS software. I could do a whole nother video about what ATS software is and how to optimize your resume for it, but I'm just going to give you a quick little crash course so you can get started. ATS stands for Applicant Tracking Software, and what this is actually used for is big corporations with huge application pools. They're going to use this software to go through all these resumes, rank them, so they can then start the interview process. Because if you're a big company, you get 5,000 resumes coming in, you can't spend all that time and effort going through each and every resume, ranking them, and then going through the interview process. So when these companies get these large application pools, they're going to put it through the software. It's going to rank it all out so they can start interviewing, let's say, the top 50 or the top 100 applicants, where the bottom 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 applicants aren't even going to get looked at. And a reason why your resume is going to get ranked super low is if you don't optimize your resume for this software. So the first basic when optimizing your resume for ATS software is to make sure that you even apply for the job. You got to make sure that you have the proper school and the proper years of experience. You got to make sure that you have everything that the system's going to need to even put you in the interview process. Because if you need 5 years of school, 5 years of work experience, and you have like 2 and 2, they're not even going to bring you to the interview process. ATS software advice number 2, make sure that you look up relevant terms in your industry and use these on your resume. Whatever your role is at the company, look up keywords that could be found in this role. You can probably just do a quick Google search and they'll provide you with something. Use these in your resume. You're more likely to get selected through the ATS software. Option number 3 is use action verbs in your resume. You want to be engaging. You want to make it exciting as much as you can, even though it's just a highlight sheet, and you do want to be more personal on a cover letter. Make sure that you use good action verbs, very engaging terminology in your resume so the ATS software and the hiring agent are actually engaged in your resume. Number 4 is make sure that you use keywords that are relevant to the job. So if you're in customer relations, use keywords like customer relations, customer retention, customer aid. These types of keywords on your resume are actually going to help you rank higher on the ATS software. And the 5th tip, kind of incorporated with the 4th, use these keywords as descriptions in your resume about past achievements and past highlights. This is very important. You can't just throw keywords in there and expect your resume to work. You want to put keywords in effectively where you can display how well you did something at your past job or how you're qualified for the job. You want to do a little bit of a mash of both. And yet again, these are just basics to optimize for an ATS software. There's probably going to be AI programs that'll write resumes for you guys anyways, but until that point, I hope everybody can avoid these horrible mistakes that you might be making on your resume. If you're still sticking around, I greatly appreciate it. If I've missed a point that you think is very valid, please leave it down in the comments below so people can do their own research on it. And with all that being said, have a great rest of the day.